we move on to another club in a managerial search, moving to Liverpool. Now, Xabi Alonso still leads the way in terms of becoming the next manager after Jurgen Klopp's departure in the summer. That is inevitable. However, Paul, obviously Tuchel news, like we mentioned earlier in the pod, Bayern at the end of the season, he's going. Does that throw a potential spanner in the works, do you think?
Well, they've been clever by Munich, haven't they? They've put their hat in the ring straight away. I mean, they've put their cards on the table and they've said, right, we've got a managerial vacancy at the end of the season. They know that they're going to be competing with the likes of Liverpool. I mean, if you were a manager last week, you wouldn't have answered the phone from the chairman. I mean, Sunderland manager lost his job, Marseille manager lost his job, Napoli, Bayern Munich, Klopp. I mean, last couple of weeks has been a real merry-go-round. And I think we're going to see more of a merry-go-round this summer. And it's just interesting to see who will go where. I've said it a million times before in this pod. I don't want to be the next one that goes into Liverpool. You want to be the one after the next one. Do you want to be the David Moyes after a Sir Alex Ferguson? Do you want to be the Unai Emery after Arsene Wenger? It's when you pick up. I mean, this pattern that somebody's going to have to pick up, the relationship that Klopp's got with these Liverpool fans, he's just a perfect fit. You almost, in this generation, of our generation of football fans, you can't really imagine a Liverpool without Jurgen Klopp. So whoever comes in, it's going to have to be one hell of a smooth transition. And it's a tough job. Xabi Alonso is the favourite. But now, obviously, Bayern Munich have become real contenders for him because they've gone, look, we're changing Tuchel at the end of the season. Bayern have got a really good habit, and what they do over the years, they pick from the Bundesliga. So they buy players from other teams that have hurt them and that could potentially hurt them and stop them winning league titles. They've been very, very good at that throughout the years. They've looked at other teams and gone, right, we want to win the league next year. How can we weaken other teams, but also strengthen ourselves? And they've been very good at that. And I wouldn't be surprised if they go in really strongly to get Xabi Alonso.
You're bringing a tear to my eye, Paul, but we'll move on and talk about Roberto De Zerbi, Nicky. £10 million release clause at Brighton, potentially the second favourite for the job. Do you think he'd be a suitable candidate? And actually, a bit like Paul was referring to, anyone other than Xabi Alonso, do you think they'd actually walk in and be successful?
No. You know, you don't want to be the next one after Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp is a manager of the generation. We've seen sort of managers, you know, we've seen Brighton managers go into bigger clubs and fail and you know, be shipped out there pretty quickly. No, look, De Zerbi's a good manager. I don't think he's been brilliant with Brighton this season. Like, you look at Brighton, you know, Brighton from what, you know, the way they've been playing football, they've had some bad periods. I don't think he'd last well at Liverpool. You know, I don't think he would. I've got no basis on that, but I just think to myself, like, I would not be. It's like, you know, if Elton John was performing at a concert, you wouldn't want to follow him up. You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't. You know what I mean?
Mate, you've not heard me sing.
Well, I've heard myself sing, and I definitely wouldn't want to follow him. But you know, there's such hard acts to follow, and you normally find that an appointment straight after is not, I mean, because everything's so instilled there and there's such a lot to do. They don't last long, you know. They're just sort of like, you know, placeholders until they sort the, you know, the upstairs out. But yeah, I wouldn't want to. But I'd stick with Brighton. I said that with a few players last year. You know, sometimes that the, you know, players moving from smaller clubs to bigger clubs, it doesn't quite work out. And sometimes you know, it's worth just waiting, just being patient and seeing what, you know, crafting, you know, doing it for a little while longer. Like I said, 𝗧cie𝘁𝗁𝗲 at Chelsea, you know, he should have stayed at Brighton for another year or two before he walked on. 21 years old. It's tough. It's tough when you've got to change everything. And I'd definitely, you know, Liverpool's an attractive job, but I'd look at that as a bit of a poison chalice, if I'm honest.
I mean, Paul, you've got your finger on the pulse at Spurs. Now that Tuchel he's definitely confirmed to be going. Does that concern you with Ange? I mean, he's come out quite a few times, said he's staying at Tottenham. There's a project that's going on there. But now that that's happened and it could be Alonso to Bayern, does that concern you anymore? Yeah,
of course it does. I mean, you look at the job that Ange has done this season. Start of the season, what was the realistic expectation? You know, without Harry Kane, you're thinking, right, okay, well, let's see if we can get a European place. But because of the first 10 games, all of a sudden the expectation changes. And then Ange keeps going in the way that they're playing. They've made a lot of friends this year, Tottenham, apart from West Ham, obviously, and Chelsea.
Actually, you know what, Paul? I've appreciated Tottenham this year. I can't say that many years.
They've been a good watch. And, you know, you got to credit the manager that. He's had one transfer window, he's brought players in, he's added to the squad, and he's made them a good team. And you can see the ethos that he's had. And the manager's had success wherever it's been. I mean, he won the Asian Cup with Australia. He had success in the Far East. He had success north of the border in Scotland. You'll argue that none of those are the equivalent of the Premier League, but all of that is the ladder to where he is now. He's building his CV, and he's come into Tottenham. People went, not sure. And he's hit the ground running, and the style of football and the way that he is. And I think he's endeared himself to the media, the way that he is. And I think you can see the type of guy he is. And if he talks like that in the dressing room to his players, he's open, he's honest, he does it his way. And his stock as a manager has gone through the roof this season. And absolutely, I'm worried about him leaving Tottenham. I mean, if Tottenham don't get top 4 this season, there will be a lot of big clubs coming looking at Ange Postecoglou. Reeled off a load of clubs there that have changed their manager or sacked their manager in recent times. There's not a lot out there. Look at the coaches that are out of work. There isn't that many. And you look now, the money that teams have got and the pull of the Champions League is managers want to manage at the top. You saw De Zerbi's interview last week before the Sheffield United game. He was open, he was honest, it was refreshing. He was like, look, I want to manage in my own country at some point. I want to manage in the Champions League. I want to compete in the Champions League while competing for league titles, whether that be in the Premier League, Italy, Spain, wherever that may be. He was open and honest and said, look, I'm not going to be at Brighton forever. I want to be at the top. And that's what managers do in the same way as players. If a player's playing well, he's going to move on to bigger and better things. If Tottenham aren't in the Champions League next year, there'll be a few phone calls coming in for Ange. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, and I think that is inevitable. Obviously, he is a top manager, and he's proved it this season with Spurs. Obviously, albeit a roller coaster, I think to say the least, but certainly been a good season nonetheless. You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.